It's a beautiful day to blaze some good, a beautiful day to blaze some good. Would you be kind? Please light mine.
Roll up.
All right. Oh, welcome to Beans and Greens. Gonna be beans, no greens tonight. um, Probably gonna be no greens for a little while. Of course, drinking on the old Nescafe coffee. Yeah, I had to delay doing this episode for like almost 2 weeks now, pretty much due to some unforeseen like health issues. Oh, it's just not all unforeseen. Like I've said a few times on this stupid shit I've been doing. You know what I mean? Like smoking so much and shit. Like I shouldn't have been. I mean, even though it's weed, it's just the way I was doing it. You know, like I'm filming this shit at like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and by that time I'm already like fucking 10, 15 J's in. So definitely starting to feel the effects of that. So I don't know, on one hand, if it was the sort of my previous issue, but yeah, it's crazy because I actually was filming a cooking video, and that's when shit had kicked in. Started feeling like heavy, like my chest was beating, starting real heavy and shit. And of course, having had previous, basically I had a heart attack before, so I'm freaking out. I'm literally in the middle of making a video. I'm gonna upload the video. It's it doesn't show too much. There's a little bit of where you can see where something had happened, but it was nothing too dramatic on camera. Anyway, it was all off camera, and so I ended up going to the hospital for a day. So that's how I could. Hopefully, it's not anything to do with my previous heart attack, because the shit that I was dealing with before was basically from mad years of like smoking like cigarettes, and I was smoking a lot of weed too as well, but it was mostly, for a long time, it was mostly like blunt. So I was going through like pack a day, and then a bunch of blunts in that day. And eventually I switched to papers, and then I was just smoking fucking J's all day and shit. So for a while, so of course during the pandemic, shit started happening. Started feeling this congestion in my chest, and I thought it was just regular congestion, right? And no, wasn't that. It turned out, I had some, blocked arteries, and bow, ended up having a heart attack. So, again, primarily from smoking so much. So, my thing was, now I've only been smoking weed, not cigarettes, but still smoking. So I'm kind of thinking it's maybe more of a lung thing, but either way, just that's sort of what I was dealing with last week or and a half or 2 weeks, pretty much. That I've 2 weeks, pretty much. So that's why, because I put up a post about doing the, the podcast for this fucking movie, but and it was supposed to come out like that week. So that's why I'm sort of bringing up about the problem. So that day when I was doing the cooking video, I started getting that. I thought it was the same. I thought it was happening again, which is pretty crazy. I ended up going to the hospital, came out, able to finish the video, but still feeling like shit for the last 2 weeks. So I haven't really been able to smoke any herbs and shit. I made some edible wax, of course. So, I mean, don't give up the herbs. Just what I should have been doing all along was just edibles, as opposed to smoking so damn much. So, Who knows? Maybe because still going through some testing now, so I don't know if I'm out the woods 100%, but still got to work. And it's just crazy just bringing it up and completely. You know what I mean? It's just, I guess, talking on camera makes you just sort of admit things and shit. But anyway, that's just what I basically been dealing with, some health shit, and of course it's serious health shit. But oh well, that's how it be. But going forward, at least as far as pretty much probably the next a few videos and shit, it'll definitely be no smoking. So, but of course, I'll still be pretty lit. It's the way I do my edibles, strictly for personal use anyway. I don't know, like all the governments in America now is in a tizzy about edible anything. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a more safer way of ingesting or using marijuana. It just, if you don't have it the right way, done the right way, sometimes it takes like 45. Now, see, okay, so usually you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour for it to kick in, but if you make it right and you get the right kind of stuff to starter, like the material, I mean, I've made cookies, literally. I remember one day I made these cookies and I left my house and I had a J, and it was 15 minutes. Boom, I was super zooted for the rest of the day. I didn't even smoke the J. I went home with the J. So, just got to make it like that, and that's the only problem. That's the main problem. But either way, the next few, then I got some good ones coming up. So just basically for the next few ones, you won't see me smoking. It'll be a while. Just anyway. So the movie that we were doing this podcast on is, like I said, is one that I had already put up a post about, and that's V for Vendetta. Now, as I'm going through and watching the movie, it's sort of like I mentioned in the beginning. This is sort of a movie. It sort of reminds me of, one of those dolls where you pick up the doll and there's like another doll inside but smaller. Then you pick that doll up, there's another smaller doll, and you just keep going and keep going. So there are like so many different layers to the movie, and it's sort of wild because the movie itself is basically it's a misdirect in itself, but the parallels between what's going on in life, and it's just, again, it's one of those movies, one of those things. It's the things in this movie that you can't ignore. So one of the main themes that is really sort of playing out now is sort of resentment towards America, and just sort of everything that we stand for. Because you saw in one scene, the preacher. Oh, was he a preacher or more of a like a news? Yeah, he was more like a televangelist, a typical televangelist. I mean, it was only difference, obviously, because it was not coming from the America perspective, so he was speaking more in terms of England, but it was still the same tone, the same rhetoric, the same vitriol behind V word. I just realized because you go through saying all these words, all these V words to describe sort of the circumstance, and I mean they all fit. It wasn't like obviously being a movie, they're not gonna just throw just any words in there, just sort of fit the narrative or fit the idea. So they all made sense, but it was just a lot of V's. But anyway, yeah, a lot of vitriol. But essentially, wanted to reject America's plea for help, primarily because of what was it the Boston Tea Party, and I mean, they want to turn down wheat and tobacco. I mean, that's hardly a fair trade, tea from tobacco and wheat. But then it goes back to a whole another layer of them talking about uh, depletion of water in America. I mean, it's not something else that we're dealing with. I mean, we have a we have a water machine. Every month, they come and they bring whatever bottles we need for the month, and that's the water we drink it, and it's crazy because the machine it puts out cold and hot water, so it's like a faucet in that sense. And like I don't even heat up water in a coffee pot anymore because I use the machine. So that's where you can see that's where you can see another parallel because that's a thing. This movie, is not new. This is not a recent movie. I mean, she's done a ton of movies. She's basically become, and they talk about Natalie Portman. She's basically become Thor since then. So I mean, she's you gotta think of when these actors and actresses, make some of these movies. A lot of times, they have a shit ton of movies that you remember, but you do one sort of Star Wars movie or you do one Marvel movie, and I think that puts you even in more of a rarefied area. You know what I mean? So even though you may not necessarily be thought of as like a classic thespian, or somebody who's I mean, you got somebody like the X-Men actors, Magneto, the one that plays Magneto and Professor X, and they had that sort of Shakespearean sort of like respect on that level, and then they do these X-Men movies. So, and then of course the one's X-Men, then also Lord of the Rings. You know what I'm saying? And then the other one is X-Men and then Star Trek. So, but she friggin' didn't necessarily have that sort of stature, but she did. She was Padme from Star Wars. I mean, Luke's mother. I mean, and as far as Star Wars goes, like one of like the most important mother of the whole Star Wars lore. And then she also played female Thor, or Thor basically. So, but so you could think of when you play those two characters, movies such as V for Vendetta, which was I mean, it wasn't uber big at the time, but it was obviously because of the Guy Fawkes mask and with Anonymous. That movie sort of has some longevity to it, but not really because of the contents of the movie. Obviously, more because again, just the sensation behind the mask and the message, which is one of the layers that I want to go, because you get this sort of revolutionary tone from the movie. But they tell you in the beginning, right? Okay, that this Guy Fawkes, the original one, right? They tell you in the beginning that he tried to burn down Parliament, all this stuff. But now, of course, here's where we go into conspiracies. It wasn't, and this is where, like I said, the whole movie itself is sort of a misdirect, because now you have this character who's looked on upon as sort of like a Robin Hood figure, which they got a new Robin Hood movie. I don't know if it's out yet, but or I know it's coming out, but puts a whole new twist on that as well. And we have this sort of pie in the sky idea of these characters, and when you pull back the layers and you get beyond sort of the romanticism of what they've done, it's not necessarily what they want you to believe in that romantic sort of fantasy that these men robbed, the rich and gave to the poor. And a lot of times it was more like they robbed everybody, rich, poor, whatever, and gave to themselves. That's why all these characters, right? The Robin Hoods, the Jesse James, and in this movie, the Guy Fawkes. So we get this sort of in the beginning, we get this sort of romantical sort of idea how this revolutionary was hung for his deeds and sort of bad government, which, yeah, but what was the true Guy Fawkes doing? And from sort of conspiratorial terms, it wasn't his deeds wasn't for the people. Think of him sort of more of in the terms of a CIA agent, where they may facilitate, sort of say, the bombing of such structure. Now, of course, in this movie, they want you to believe that there was these sort of noble reasons for that, where I sort of contend that there may be sort of more nefarious reasons for that. And that's why I say the whole movie is a misdirect, because now you see this figure, this Anonymous, and we've seen all the different videos about it, but there was never any real change come about there, right? There was never, nobody ever really suffered any consequences like there would in the movie, obviously, because it was a movie, and there is no real justice in this world for those of us who don't have any money. I mean, if you got money, of course you can justice is for sale. That's a fact. So we'll we'll always I mean, let's be for real. So, but that's the point. Knowing how actual life is, knowing how society is, knowing that justice is something that can only be bought who was behind the real Guy Fawkes, the real deeds. Because I believe this was a real based off of might have been. I think it was. Either way, the idea behind it is really what I'm sort of focusing on, sort of laser pinpointing on. Because again, these movies always feature this romantic idea, and yeah, it's never see again the dangers of something like this is like, sort of the misdirect, the redirect of the energy, not just the attention, but it's the energy behind it. Because if you notice, whenever there was some sort of narration, and it was sort of when the Guy Fawkes character sort of evoked that same feelings that the character from Network, Beale, that sort of it was sort of anger, the sort of revolutionary spirit that was he was able to sort of use this pulpit to sort of pull out of the people. It was that same thing here. Whenever you had the Guy Fawkes character do one of his monologues, so you get that sort of same pull, that same pull of energy, but where does it go? You see what I'm saying? Where does that energy go? Where does that feelings go? And that's again is one of the points of why I do this, because of course we see just a movie, but the movies themselves, because it hits that it through the use of music, through the use of lights and flashing lights and sort of hypnosis type state that you're put into with these movies. You know, you're expending real energy and real emotion and real feeling, as opposed to actually using that in sort of a more tangible, effective way. You sort of you go through all of that through these movies, and by the end you're drained of all of that spirit. And then of course somebody says, you know, let's get together because X, Y, and Z, and you say, I saw that in the fucking movie. The fuck out of here. You know, the cognitive dissonance. Some other themes. So obviously one of the things I did mention is about how the preacher, the televangelist, you know, he really mirrored what we see now. Of course, this is when this movie was out, the internet wasn't like it is now. Social media wasn't like it is now. So it was foreshadowing. And the thing about it is, we had our televangelists on television, on televangelists on TV. So at the time when the movie came out, it wasn't that out of the norm to see something like that in the movie, because we could foresee that was something that was going to that level. You know, the again, I have to use the word vitriol, because that is the best way to describe the way he talked about society in America as a whole. You know, and through what he was saying, you could see that, which is something you can see happening now, that all of the cachet that America had built up in the world, was no longer there because of deeds and tactics that America had obviously done to the world. And then, of course, there was still that resentment based off of the Boston Tea Party. That was, of course, you don't, I mean, ay, ay, ay. I gotta freaking remember to, I gotta have to do a super editing job, this fucking setup. I gotta keep pushing the fucking mouse. All right, back. All right, so yeah, we're seeing that now. We're seeing the whole. I mean, just any kind of standings we've had in the world that we built up prior to Trump administration. All of that's being eroded. I mean, not only our financial standing, but a social standing in the world is just totally eroded. Which it almost seems like it's being done on purpose, right? And that was reflected in this movie, which wasn't the. I mean, it was brewing at the time this movie came out, but it wasn't so out in the open. I mean, it is now, and it's hard to not understand. I mean, it's hard to it's hard. I mean, it's easy to understand. Honestly, what I'm talking about. It's easy to understand what the shit's going on, and now you see what's going on with the World Cup happening, and they're really, you know, putting the screws to, or trying to anyway. I don't know. One of the things what's going on with wars and all this stuff. All the corporations which are being supported by, which are owned by all the governments in the world, even the ones that are being bombed. All these companies are making billions of dollars, so nobody wants this shit to stop. And that's anyway. Now, one of the things that we saw also is the sort of deputized force of people going around just flashing their badges and using that as a reason to just basically do what they want to do. In the case of what happened with Natalie Portman's character, basically about trying to rape her and shit like that. And we see where do we see a force like that now? I mean, they don't go to that extent of raping, but they have murdered, and to me, that's basically one. I mean, that's the only thing above rape is murder. I mean, at least with rape, the person's alive, even though you've murdered that person's spirit. So, I mean, you can kind of put him. I mean, in my mind anyway, they're just and just going around just pulling people for whatever reason. And it's basically a force that was used by the government, the rich. I mean, just silence the political enemies, silence anybody they want to silence. And as you see, going back to something that I had mentioned in the last one of my last podcasts, and where I mentioned how they create these groups, and in the case of this movie, they had the it wasn't necessarily a group that was defined, but you had this way that you could be open. And in the case you had the woman who was a lesbian, had that lesbian relationship, and they were able to be out in the open with their relationship, and then the government on a dime switched, and what was very important, which is something again that we're seeing right now, is the language. How you change the language. You change the language, then you change the understanding of that, and then you can use that to justify. In the case of the homosexual relationships, you justify locking those people up because you were able to. It was you were able to justify it by changing the language, but people also were more accepting of it. One, because you had a gun pointed to their head, but then it was also, again, the idea. And then now you can't live openly in society, which is sort of similar to what's going on now. There's a lot of people who are able to be more open about certain things, and now you're seeing that there's sort of a slowdown on that, a slowdown of just the whole social normality of these things, these ideas. I mean, that's happening right now. Another thing too is, and that was very big, is surveillance. Resource surveillance was, and it's basically like that now. Everything is surveilled. There's always cameras. The one that was crazy, but I kind of have a feeling is something that's happening, is the cars that will go around and be able to hear people speaking in house. I mean, I've seen something about that, where they're creating these vehicles and shit, and they can just drive around and pick up all your speech through your walls, basically recording what you're saying. And that's sort of, it really sounds sort of like basically sort of like what algorithm would be like a human algorithm, because you go around recording all this different speech, and then when you hear something that raises your eyebrows, you have the location because you were there. You have the GPS coordinates and everything. And of course, that movie, the movie didn't have that literally in there, but you can see the parallel between that and then what's going on now. And then, of course, all the video surveillance and shit like that. And another thing that you see in the movie, that's you have basically a corrupt government, and it's what so crazy about this movie is you have this Chancellor Sutler, right? This guy was in the guy who played Sutler, he also he was in 1984, and the irony of him playing that character, the the man behind the curtain, the character or group of characters that 1984 is warning us about, he plays literally that role in this movie. And the tactics that they were describing in 1984 were tactics that the characters were using in this movie. And it's, using the propaganda to enforce the ideas, obviously also using a military force to enforce the ideas, changing the language in order to enforce these ideas. These are all tropes that we saw in 1984. So it was ironic that this Sutler character was the guy who played him was it just that, again, that parallel. Of course, you see it being played out not only as sort of a theme through movies that you can sort of always dance around and sort of create a movie around that, but then that theme is something that's imprinted in these movies in order to show you that this is also reflected in real life. Because now we have in this movie, you have these corrupt government officials that used problem reaction solution in order to ascend to the power structure, and then created basically an empire, so sort of like in Star Wars, with that corruption. And they used false flags. Obviously, we saw where they had all these outbreaks of these different viruses in these 3 different events. These are just what we call a false flag. So this is, again, parallels to things that we're seeing in society, because even though a lot of these events haven't been confirmed to be happening by the government, same thing in the movie, conspiratorially, these are events and things that we in these spaces basically call government ops. So in the movie, they're finding out that our government has done these things. Now they have done experiments on humans, and I mean, come on. We know that during World War II, you had all this experimentation being done on people in Nazi Germany. And then after World War II, we bring those same people that were doing those experiments in Germany, we bring them over here. And to do that here. See, so these ideas are not only played out in the movies, but they're played out in real life. So you have, again, experiments on people, the false flags. Now these people are running in government, and what they have done is they've changed their names, they've changed their sort of whitewashed all their deeds. This is something we see now. We see in government what's been going on with these files that have been being released, that a lot of these people aren't who we think they are. You see what I'm saying? Now, there's another obvious trope in that movie. Because we also see that, how did this preacher become rich? He became rich because he had stock in a pharmaceutical company that created the cure for the disease that they released in the public. I mean, Again, this is something we just end up going through, and we hear about all of the crazy profits that a lot of these corrupt businesses, corrupt families, corrupt companies, corrupt governments, a lot of money that these people have made. And a lot of it too was tax dollars. So it's like, we're gonna make this bullshit. They're gonna make sure and we're gonna make you pay for it. We're gonna take the money from you, and there's no recourse to get any of it back if our product is not good. I mean, like I said, it's just one layer after another layer after another layer after another layer. So if you haven't already watched it, like, you can watch the movie, just either download it or go on HBO. I think it's HBO Max. You can go there and watch it, but I mean, if it's anybody watching this is so inclined to, you can go definitely on to Patreon. $5 a month, and they got like a whole list of movies, and I got a whole bunch of them coming out. I'm gonna have a few. The next few movies that are coming out are gonna be movies that were recommended from the internet, and I've not seen any of these movies prior to filming this on the Patreon version or any of it. So this is going to be the next 5 movies are going to be just sort of random stuff. So I don't know. I know they're all conspiracy movies. I know they all tie into society as we know it. So it's just how the package is presented, whether it's high comedy, drama, action. Obviously, this one was a mixture of drama and action, and that's the thing that we always sort of come away with when you watch movies such as this, because it ends in a blaze of glory. But life isn't really like that, right? And that's where the parallels end. Because usually with a blaze of glory, a lot of us have suffered somehow, and like I said before, unless you got money, there's no real justice to be had. It's just only just pretty much straight dicking you until they're done dicking you. But at least you can watch some movies in the meantime. I don't know. It's just seeing what's going on in the world right now, and again, what these movies do besides entertain, with the driving the cognitive dissonance, and even sort of apathy. That's one of those things that really affect this world right now. Apathy. People don't want to get up and do anything. They look at getting up and doing something as being, like, people actually think it's wrong to go against, I don't know, things like war. It's like, how dare you talk against war? How dare you talk against killing? How dare you suggest that, these people are wrong for wanting to slaughter these people? How dare you suggest that? I don't know. Anyway, so if you've watched this far, Hopefully you're able to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. This one's going to be on. This is going to be YouTube, obviously, and then again, the actual watch of the movie is on Patreon. That'll be up at the same time. So anybody watching, thank you for watching. And the day is long. Wait. See, I'm forgetting my saying. The day is long, sun is hot. Blah. Start again. The day is long, sun is hot. Might as well smoke if you got some pot. I'm out.